Okay.
Aloha and welcome to Author Talk. I'm Lori, coming from the beautiful Big Island of Hawaii. Thank you for joining us today. I'm so glad you did because I'm excited about my author today, Jessica Ann Thompson. Her book is What If, Roxy? And if you have it, you can hold it up. Yes, there it is. It's so cute with the dog. Although, Jessica, well, welcome. First, good to have you here with me today.
Thank you for having me, Lori. Aloha. As I'm in Wisconsin, I would much rather have come to you to Hawaii for the interview, but I get it.
Yes, yes, it has been nice here. I know it's probably cold there by now. So,
It's getting there, but it's coming.
yes, yes. So your book, the cover of it is the picture of a dog, but your book isn't actually about your dog or a dog. So tell us a little bit about yourself and why you chose to write this book. What if Roxy?
Okay. Well, as I mentioned, I live in Wisconsin. I've lived here all my life. I have an amazing mom and dad, and even though I'm an only child, I do have a pretty large family, which,
Mm-hmm.
most of them are in the same area, which is nice. I'm a mom to a terrific teenage son, Zachary, and Roxy, who's our fur baby right now.
Yes.
I'm pretty laid back. I enjoy doing crafts and painting and drawing, and most recently writing a children's book.
Yes. Fantastic. Fantastic. So, um, tell us what your book is about.
Well, as you mentioned, it does have dogs in it. I kind of used our dogs, Riley and Roxy, as the characters to portray my son's struggles he had with anxiety when he was
Mm-hmm.
little.
Mm-hmm.
Our dog Roxy tends to get anxious at times, and you can tell sometimes she's, gets that way. So it was kind of fitting that she become the star of the book for it. My son Zach, he used to worry constantly, and then he'd ask, what if this happens, Mama? What if this happens? What if that? What if? What if? What if? And so aptly, then I decided to name the book "What If, Roxy."
Okay, I love it, and I love that you are kind of talking about your son's issues, but through the dogs, they illustrate kind of his emotions and the struggles that he was having. I love it. It's so cute. I really enjoyed What If Roxy. So, your book kind of deals with childhood anxiety. And
Mm-hmm.
is that something that Zach was born with, or was there an event that kind of brought it on?
You know, I don't really think there was an event. I think it just was something, that kind of started, and it started fairly young. So
Mm-hmm.
I think that, a lot of parents may not consider their kids have anxiety issues because at the
Mm-hmm.
time there were so many little things that you couldn't quite put together. I just maybe thought maybe he's just kind of high strung or extra sensitive.
Mm-hmm.
So it finally kind of came about. His principal had mentioned to his one teacher, maybe he's OCD, and she was like, no, that's not it. But his school counselor gave me a book then about different anxiety disorders, and the generalized anxiety disorder. When I was reading it, I'm like, oh my goodness, this is him to a T.
Oh,
So
okay.
then, we finally had something to focus and figure out, okay, how do we progress from here now?
Yes. So it was the school, was the school principal, this kind of staff at the school that noticed something, and you had moved, right? Moved, and he went to a new school.
Um, Not well. When he started school, we had moved already, so it wasn't like he was transferring to a new school.
Oh, okay, okay.
Um, but like the main thing with him, especially at school, was the fire drill. It was, when is the fire drill going to be? What, and he would work himself up, so asking about it, and that's when the principal thought, well, maybe he's OCD, because he's got such an obsession with it.
Yes.
And yet it was so funny because at home he'd draw pictures of fire drills. He wanted to put one up in his room. So it was a very weird love-hate relationship he had with that. But because I think too, it was so exhausting for me as a parent, because he'd come home from school. He wouldn't do it at school because I would
Uh-huh.
talk to his teachers. I'd be like, does he ask all this? And they're like, no, but his counselor told me you're his safe place. When he comes home,
Okay.
that's when he unloads. So, I kind of went through a depression at the time because it took so much out of me. He'd come home from school and I'd sleep most of the day just to kind of getting myself up for when he'd come home and
Mm-hmm.
start all over with, oh, what if this happens? And it was just the constant, I had to be on guard for his questions
Yes.
and try to help calm him down. So,
Yes. So I love in the book with the dogs, and kind of their antics and their situations that they get in, and all of the what ifs, like, um, kind of with the move, what if they forget us, or maybe the book doesn't follow along exactly, your life, but
right.
yeah. What if I can't find my toys? What if they forget us? So these are, like, what if I can't find my toys? That's, I know your son was very young when this started, but that's a simple kind of concept. And so,
Exactly.
yeah. So can you speak into that a little bit?
Yeah, I think, because, yeah, like you said, the what if, they weren't exactly what he did. But a lot of them were simple
Mm-hmm.
questions, what if, and I just thought, okay, he's got an overactive imagination, or he's thinking a lot, and,
Mm-hmm.
he'd worry like about me if I go out shopping, or he'd be like, well, what if you get kidnapped, mama? What if this, and he would just think of so many, things. And I would be like, oh my goodness, how is he even thinking of all this stuff? And, when we finally, got him some therapy help, when they were talking about, because originally I didn't want to take him at first because I
Mm-hmm.
didn't want them just throwing medication at him.
Sure.
I wanted them to see the issue. And it was finally my mom who, she took me aside one day and she suggests, she's like, you've done absolutely everything you can as a mom.
Okay.
She's like, but he needs some professional help now. And
Yes.
it was hard, but it was also a relief because,
Mm-hmm.
I knew, I'm like, why can't I fix this? I'm mom, And so it was a relief to me to know that I wasn't doing something wrong.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
so when we did get him a little help, and even the therapist finally said, I think maybe he could benefit from seeing a psychiatrist and who could maybe
Okay.
prescribe him something.
Okay.
And, they kind of used the expression, his brain just might need a little reset.
Okay.
And it
Yeah.
was amazing when he did go on a low dose of a medication. Within
Mm-hmm.
like 2 weeks, I could
Wow.
tell
A
it,
big difference. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
you don't like to say that because you don't want to give people that kind of hope, thinking, oh, this will definitely work for me. But I just noticed it because every time I kind of be waiting for those what ifs or the constant questions, they weren't happening as much.
Oh,
And
wow.
so it was like,
Okay.
oh my goodness, and he was smiling again, and he didn't have the weight of the world on his shoulders, for a 5-year-old. So
Yes. So you had kind of suspected some things, but you weren't quite sure. And then the school noticed something, your mom noticed something to kind of confirm what you were feeling. But what about physical manifestations? Like the stomach ache and.
yeah, yes, he constantly, had stomach aches. And we had to take him, I remember, for like an MRI to just make sure he didn't have like an ulcer or
Mm-hmm.
something. And yeah, it was because his worrying so much, he got himself so worked up so that his stomach would hurt so bad. And yeah, it was every morning, oh, mama, my tummy hurts, or, I can't go on the bus, my tummy hurts. And so, yeah, you feel helpless because something's wrong and you
Yes.
just can't pinpoint it.
Yeah. So that's, even though that could kind of just be something a child might say in the morning to get out of going
Right.
to school,
Right.
these are things that need to actually be paid attention to. Um,
Yeah.
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 Especially because when they're little, they can't quite communicate
Yeah.
to you, those
Mm-hmm.
issues. And because he did love school, so that's how I knew it wasn't like, okay, he's trying to get out of school. He loved it. He loved the teachers, and you'd come home and pretend school. So yeah, so it was very frustrating for me because I'm like, I know something's wrong. I took him to the doctor for his stomach aches, and they said, well, maybe try some antacids, for maybe his stomach is just extra sensitive. So
Mm-hmm.
it's hard because, especially, we as adults know, mental health it's a hit or miss
Yeah.
when you try to get help. It's a
Yes.
lot of trial and error. So, with him taking to the doctors and trying to figure out if it was something health wise,
Yeah.
and to scratch that off and be like, okay, now what? So,
Yeah. So you end up getting help, and being referred to a psychiatrist and then agreeing for the medication. I know you said that was kind of hard. I mean, I think that would be a hard decision to make. So, can you speak into like what was your process in agreeing to try it, and did you talk about it with Zach, and how did all that happen?
I think because I knew I tried everything else. I
Mm-hmm.
tried regular doctors, I tried different supplements to kind of help because I thought, well, maybe he needs probiotics or something. I was willing to try it finally because it wasn't something that was just initially like, oh, your kid has issues, so let's just put him on something.
Yeah.
They were willing to work with him. He saw a
Okay.
therapist. They talked. He went to his appointments, his sharing appointments. And
Mm-hmm.
after a while, then his therapist was like, I think he can benefit from a little bit more because something's just not quite helping enough. And I like the fact that they let me do the deciding on that. They didn't just say he needs this. This is what you have
Mm-hmm.
to do.
Mm-hmm. Good.
So I think
So
you have to have a good therapist,
yes.
or psychiatrist, or doctor, or somebody who is willing to work with you.
Yes. So you didn't give up. You kept kind of searching and seeking the help until you found exactly what you needed for your situation, because you I think said earlier that Zach has I forget the exact kind of anxiety
It's
you said.
GAD, generalized anxiety
Generalized
disorder.
anxiety. And so is that if he had to get on medication and see a psychiatrist, I'm thinking that's pretty serious, a pretty serious disorder.
Not really. I mean, it can be, obviously, if you don't figure it out and
Okay.
and get help,
Yeah.
early on.
Mm-hmm.
But because with the medication, like I really liked how the doctor said sometimes our brains just need like a little reset, and to me
Yes.
that's almost exactly what happened with him.
Mm-hmm.
It slowed like that thinking process down for him, and because he was such a happy, smiling child. And, to see him go through that, you knew obviously that's not him. And so, to have him kind of come back, have the medication work, have the therapy work, and then eventually he was able to wean off of it.
Okay.
Uh, so it wasn't something, that, oh, he's going to be on this the rest of his life.
Yeah.
Um, so
Okay.
that I kind of that it was just something that kind of he just needed a little help resetting, and
Yeah.
then he was able to kind of focus and go back being a kid.
Good. So kind of in the beginning, um, when he was young, you kind of just noticed, and people started noticing his light dimming, like his shine was kind
Yeah,
of going away, and so you got him help, and there's lots of support, and you decided to take the medication, and then you started to see the light come back, like he started to shine again.
yeah,
Yeah. So when you, because I know a lot of moms and parents, are apprehensive about medication, and so
sure.
this one helped to reset the brain. But when you were talking about it initially, did the doctor say that he wouldn't? This isn't something you necessarily take forever. And
No, I think they just said if it doesn't work, obviously this is the very lowest dose. We can
okay.
always try upping it, or we could try. I mean, it's like
Mm-hmm.
with adults. Certain medications just don't work. We just happened to find one that did at the time with him. So we were very fortunate. I don't know if maybe because of his age, maybe that's why too. You're younger, your brain isn't more as fully developed.
Sure.
Who
Mm-hmm.
knows? But like I said, we were just fortunate enough that the one we tried worked and it helped, and it was able to get him back to where he was. So
Yeah. So how long about from you noticing and saying, okay, we've got to get professional help. How long was that until you kind of found the medication and you got better? How long of a
I would say
process?
probably a year process.
Okay. So there it is a process then, for sure, to kind
Yeah,
of figure it out.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And and it could even have been longer. But just because of knowing when he got into school, and because like his counselor had said, yeah, he doesn't he doesn't portray those issues at school because, you're his safe place. He goes home and that's where he unloads everything. Because, when we were going through some of the issues, I would email the teachers, like, is he doing this at school? If he does, try to, redirect him. And they're like, no, he's not doing it, So, and in a way I was kind of like, oh, good. So I'm the lucky one who gets it. But,
Yes.
in a way it makes you feel good because when like the counselor said you're his safe place, that's how it should be for kids with their issues.
Yes.
They should feel they can come home and just, unload whatever they need to.
Yes. And it sounds like you were in great communication with the school as well, his teachers and
his teachers, the staff at his school, and because I helped out a lot, in his class too, so that gave me a chance to kind of see how he, reacted in school. But yeah, we had great communication, constant, emailing, and visits, appointments, different things. So I think, if it wasn't for that, it wouldn't have gotten caught as early on, and it could have been, a lot more worse than for him.
Sure. So it's good just to kind of listen to kind of other people's input or their observations.
Yeah.
So
or just bring any concerns you have to the teachers. Don't wait necessarily to see if they, because like, I said, he wasn't portraying some of those at school. So then they kind of could watch for certain things and let me know. But yeah, I would let him know certainly, like, okay, today's kind of been a bad day for him, his stomach's bothering him. So I would let him know ahead of time, and, usually things would work out, but, there were some days that he had to stay home because his stomach was hurting. So.
Okay. Yeah. So being proactive on your end, on your part, kind of really made a big difference as well in terms of kind of getting a team, support team around him. Yeah. So why did you decide to kind of write this in a children's book, from the perspective of dogs? Why did you kind of choose to go ahead?
Well,
it
all kind of fell together. I had the idea. I think I wrote the story generally in like one day. I think just because watching the dogs play together, and I wanted to really just help others, I think, who could be going through similar issues with their kids. Because I know when Zach was little and going through this, he didn't quite understand that other kids weren't experiencing the same things he was, but he knew he was different.
Oh, okay.
And so, I kind of think if he had a book that had a character like him that he could relate to, it might have helped him feeling like, oh, I'm not the only one. I'm not alone. This may be different, but there's things to do to help it. So I think just I want to help others, especially with the little kids. It's so hard having little ones going through that.
Yeah, and I'm sure it's kind of hard to detect, or you really have to kind of pay attention, especially in a classroom of kindergartners or first graders, where it's kind of hectic.
Because, with so many other things out there, like the autism and, some of the other things that have more specific symptoms or things that, you see, and it's like, okay, that's not quite right. Like I said, it was a bunch of just kind of little things that just didn't seem to go together. And so it wasn't like I could go to the doctor and be like, okay, it's this and this kind of, and it just, like I said, I just kind of thought must be just extra high strung or overly sensitive with things. So
yes, and I'm sure you were probably glad to find out that's kind of all it was, rather than so like autism or other kids that are on a spectrum, did you they can receive help from the state, or there's programs was there anything out there like that for an anxiety disorder?
Not really. We did finally, or he did, I forget what kind of therapy it was called. I think it was cognitive therapy, where he went to a therapist and they worked with sound and him doing something kind of at the same time. Because we thought maybe something, he just wasn't able to focus, but that wasn't, it actually turned out eventually we found out that his one ear was plugged. real bad. And, he'd never had ear infection. So I never would have thought, his ear was plugged. He was
Sure.
basically hearing like an elderly person.
Oh my
And
goodness.
so
Yeah.
that we figure is kind of what got him going with his obsession with the fire drills, because he heard it so differently.
Mm.
Um, so we had to have tubes put in his ears, and that helped. And, just I think too, with his issue with the fire drill, we would talk to the principal and be like, hey, can you just give us a heads up when it's coming? Because that way he's not constantly asking. We can tell him, hey, it's this, Monday or whatever. And one day they actually had like a full on drill where the fire department, and they had
Wow.
mock people like carried out. And
Oh,
he worried about this because it was something they talked about ahead of time. Like, oh, it's going to be, this is going to be, we're going to practice it. The fire department's going to come. He worried about it so bad, worked himself up. I finally just told him, I said, you don't have to go to school that morning.
yeah.
I said, I will take you in the afternoon. And just, I could tell, just telling him that, he was just relieved. So.
Yeah, well, that can be scary,
Yeah.
anyway. And then if you've got, anxiety on top of that, thank you for not making him go to school that day
Yeah.
and having to go through that.
So just for me too, just, the constant worrying and, and asking, it was just like, okay, you don't have to go. We won't do it. It's fine.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
I think too, as parents, you have to be willing to be flexible.
Okay.
If you're seeing things are really, a constant source of that anxiety, you have to figure out a way to help them through it, or just, completely bypass it.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And so in terms of kind of emotional, because I love the story, again with the dogs, and Roxy would say what if, and Riley would comfort Roxy, and you would take them kind of through the emotional process. So was there a lot of talking about emotions, and Zach
Oh yeah.
explaining the best he could what was going on? So what would a conversation look like with that?
A lot like just in the book, just the different ways we tried to conquer it, basically. Okay, if this, this doesn't work, just trying to, calm your emotions. Or I think one of the things I didn't put in was, his therapist said, put your anxieties, write them down on a piece of paper, put them in a box, put it away. Say, oh, that's in the box for today. Don't, so it was just a lot of little stuff, that we would try. We'd say, well, let's try this and see how this works, and I think because he at the time, he was very determined.
Okay,
and
good.
He's very smart. So if something doesn't quite work out right away, then he gets real frustrated. So I told him, we have to be patient, we have to try things. We, thankfully there were some books for children about anxiety back then that we got. Some of them were workbooks where we could kind of work through little things, or he could draw pictures and, things like that. So, it's just letting, I guess, how your child needs to communicate.
Yes.
Let them take lead with it.
Okay, good. So were there kind of during the times when you would use the workbook or work through things, what was there any defiance? Did he ever kind of just say, I don't want to do this anymore, it's not working, that kind of thing?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of that, especially when you're little,
Yes.
They don't understand, why isn't this working?
Yeah.
Or I've seen a doctor, why am I not feeling better? So yeah, it was hard, but just the good communication, having that, and just letting them know that they're not going through it alone, that you're there, you will love them unconditionally no matter what. I think that's very important, because they feel so frustrated with themselves, like, why am I this way? Why can't I fix it? I'm not like others. But just to know that, how many times I told them, you're my son. I love you no matter what you act like, what happens. And I think that's probably the most important thing that you can help them with, to relate to them through that. That, you know what, I'm here, we're going through it together. You're not just going through it on your own.
Yes, and I think that's the perfect place to end. That you go through it together. The everybody gets involved. You have a support system. You try everything until you find what works, and you go through it together. So great. You can hold up the book cover again. Tell us where somebody can get your book, What If Roxy?
What If Roxy? You can get it on Amazon, and if you have Kindle Unlimited, you can download it for free. So,
Okay, good. So it's
I was
on.
really hoping to have the book today. I had ordered my author copies a few weeks ago, but they're being slow. So
Sure.
I can maybe show you a picture to post or something when I get them. So
Yeah, perfect, perfect, and that was good too. Oh, Jessica, thank you so much for taking
thank
the
you, Laura.
time today. I'm gonna go ahead and sign up, but you can stick around, okay? So everybody, go please buy What If Roxy. It's so cute and just really will really help guide you through this particular situation. If you've got a child or somebody with the anxiety disorder, this book is just a great help and a tool to get you through that. So aloha.